Altair Ibn Laha, the legend behind the start of Ubisoft's biggest franchise. At a time when the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 were ruling modern gaming, with titles like Bioshock, Call of Duty 4, and Halo 3, the very first Assassin's Creed was a massive standout. Originally planned as a sequel to Prince of Persia, the arrival of a new console generation and its expanded technological possibilities helped transform the core concept into an entirely new intellectual property, one that will take the gaming world by surprise in November 2007. This is Assassin's Creed. With Black Flag Resistance releasing shortly on July, I decided to revisit the first Creed. The first time the three tenets are presented, the first time we hear, nothing is true, everything is permitted. It really is the first time for many things, because the situations surrounding both Altair in the past and Desmond in the present are quite tense. These two characters are connected through bloodlines, and the Animus is a machine capable of reliving ancestral memories through the genetic code of their descendants. It's an interesting way of blending the past and the future into a single story, one that slowly reveals a conflict so large that it requires multiple sequels to fully explain. Even then, it's still hard to grasp. Stay your blade from the flesh of an innocent. Hide in plain sight. Never compromise the Brotherhood. These are the three tenets every assassin must abide by, and they are the very same rules that the legendary Altair breaks in the game's introduction. Young and arrogant, he believes that strength and courage are all it takes to be an assassin. Little did he know that the consequences of his actions will hit him so hard and so early. A fellow assassin loses his life, and another his arm. Shame is brought upon the Brotherhood, and Altair is stripped of his rank, equipment, and status. Forced to start over from the bottom, he must prove that he is worthy of carrying the assassin's blade once again. To redeem himself, Altair's mentor, Al-Mualim, tasks him with assassinating 9 targets scattered across the Holy Land. Each one plays a role in a greater conspiracy threatening the region, and with every successful assassination, Altair slowly works his way back into the Brotherhood's good graces. This works perfectly as a game because it effectively scales down a powerful character into a humble level 1 crook. It masterfully introduces the elements that will make the series so popular: combat, stealth, and parkour, all blended together in an open world setting. Tamir, a ruthless black market weapons dealer. It's the first target you are tasked with eliminating. Without hesitation, Altair mounts his horse and sets foot towards the city of Damascus in the Holy Land. At first, fast travel isn't available, and for a good reason. It allows you to discover and explore the world of Assassin's Creed on your own, because this is a massive landscape filled with secrets, enemies, and more importantly, viewpoints. These small climbing challenges reward you by synchronizing the area, unlocking valuable information about the city and its surroundings. Of course, this is not a game for people afraid of heights. And it's not over yet. If by this point you don't think Altair is cool, this will change your mind immediately. The leap of faith. Just as the name suggests, all you have to do is believe and let yourself go. And somehow, the potential life-ending injuries of fall damage are disabled by a conveniently placed pile of hay. It doesn't make any sense, but if you look cool while doing it, I'm not judging. This is where Assassin's Creed truly excels at stealth. Looking at Altair, it's pretty obvious he's an assassin, so staying hidden relies less on disguises and more on blending into the crowd, so you can avoid suspicion and start your investigation. Once you set foot in Damascus, Tamir isn't going to magically appear on your minimap. You have to do the work yourself, synchronize viewpoints, question informants, pickpocket valuable letters, and uncover clues that slowly reveal your target's whereabouts. You need to build a proper case before making your move. Find the location, plan the attack, execute the assassination, then disappear before anyone realizes what happened, or at least try. It's basically Hitman, but in 1191. Altair shares bloodline with so many people, I wouldn't be surprised he shares some connection with Agent 47. Garnier de Naplouse, a doctor conducting unethical experiments. Talal, a slave trader operating out of Jerusalem. Abul Naqwad, the self-proclaimed merchant king of Damascus. These are the next names on Altair's list, and every time he puts an end to one of them, a surprisingly personal conversation follows. As they lay dying in the memory corridor, many of these targets challenge Altair beliefs. They speak in riddles, aware of why they were taken down, and more than a few are surprised that Altair carries out these orders without questioning. This is what triggers the personal growth of Altair. As he reports back with every kill, not only does he gain his assassin rank and weaponry back, his character becomes more independent, his temper more tame, and his thinking more laid back. It's funny because I find his character development to be genuinely excellent from start to finish, but his path to enlightenment involves murdering countless people. Don't question methods, question results, I guess. William of Montferrat, a crusader noble of Acre. Mahadin, the regent of Jerusalem. Jubair al-Hakim, a chief scholar of Damascus. One thing I really like about this assassination is how they serve as a final exam for everything the game has taught you so far. You study the target, assess the situation, then plan the strike. Be it swift or reckless. Figure out how you're getting out afterwards, because the aftermath is never pleasant. The moment your blade finds its target, the whole city guard goes unnoticed, and Altair got 5 stars. It's a great send-off, but sadly this is where the game sins, because this pattern becomes up to 80% of the gameplay. If you play this in a patient manner, it doesn't irk as much. Now if you plan to play several Assassin's Creed installments one after the other, it's there where you can build a level of fatigue with the franchise, and I'm speaking from experience. The other aspect on why I think Assassin's Creed shines is the fact that there are no vertical limits. It might be a more linear game with a not so inviting open world, but the fact that you can travel to your objective in a straight line just because Altair claims like he does CrossFit every other day, it's outrageously fun. I genuinely believe there's something satisfying on a human level about reaching a difficult place and taking a moment to enjoy the view afterward. Assassin's Creed captures that feeling effortlessly. Parkour, cool. One last trip to Acre leads us to the 8th target, Sibrand, a paranoid Templar leader in charge of the docks. This kill could have been really cool, but Altair is family of Tommy Vercetti or John Marston. He can't swim. Anyways, Assassin's Creed has a very unorthodox control scheme. Once it clicks, it's surprisingly comfortable, but it's clearly designed with a controller in mind. It doesn't help that the game explains actions through symbols rather than actual button prompts. Regular healing doesn't exist. To restore lost health, you must break line of sight with your enemies and lose your detected status. Once you're out of combat and hidden, your health will gradually regenerate back to full. The combat that it's not great, but it gets the job done. More importantly, it manages to convey the message that your character is no joke. Altair might consistently work in the shadows, but oftentimes he will face 10 soldiers at the same time with no fear. You don't feel overpowered because you also earn that power and skill in battle. Consistently throughout the game, especially after finishing an important memory block, we're taken back to the present and to Desmond Miles, a bartender who has been kidnapped by a company known as Abstergo Industries. It's here where the sci-fi of the show comes in at full gear. Not sure what technology we're speaking of, but the fact that a machine can make the descendant relive life experiences of his family sounds awesome. The concept of the Animus ties together the story and gameplay, so instead of simply controlling Altair, we are experiencing his memories through Desmond. Still, doesn't make this man's bloodline any more believable. It's also here where we get the outside perspective of the conflict that Altair leaves: assassins versus Templars. The kidnappers of Desmond and the 9 targets of Al-Mualim have a club membership in common. They are Templars. It's really interesting because both factions are inspired by real groups, and the assassins look for peace through freedom and Templars peace through order. Now in Desmond context, centuries after, the conflict still goes on in the present like it's Messi versus Ronaldo. Abstergo is using the Animus to locate powerful artifacts known as Pieces of Eden. These ancient objects grant extraordinary abilities, including mind control and powerful illusions. They are essentially the ultimate weapon, capable of shaping entire civilizations. But in all honesty, I've always failed to pay attention to them or what they do. One final target remains: Robert de Sable, Grandmaster of the Templar Order in the Holy Land, and the same man responsible for Altair's greatest mistake at the beginning of the game. This time, things aren't so simple. By now, the Order is fully aware of the impending doom Altair represents. Traps are prepared, decoys are deployed, yet one final battle in the eyes of God and King Richard sets free Altair from his task. His master orders have been fulfilled, but as Robert de Sable lies dying in the memory corridor, he leaves Altair with one final revelation. 9 men he sent you to kill, but 10 men found the treasure. The Templars were never the only ones searching for the piece of Eden. Al-Mualim was too, and he never intended to destroy it, he never intended to share it. He manipulated both assassins and Templars alike, eliminating anyone who stood between him and absolute power. The mentor was pursuing the same temptation that corrupted everyone else: power. Altair's final enemy is not a Templar, it's his own master. Somewhat expectable plot twist. At least it's not all evil, but greed. Good message at least. And before this game ends,
you mentioned a creed before. What is it?
Nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
probably the most famous line in the entire franchise. It means a lot and I find it very subjective, but it's better explained by the Italian assassin himself. He said, "To say that nothing is true is to realize that the foundations of society are fragile and that we must be shepherds of our civilization. To say that everything is permitted is to understand that we're architects of our actions and that we must live with their consequences, whether glorious or tragic." I'm not gonna dwell much more on it. We went from cool to cool and philosophical. The last act of Assassin's Creed 1 presents a catastrophic scenario. Back at Masyaf, the city of the Brotherhood, Al-Mualim has already stripped the civilians of their free will using the artifact. Not only he has been blinded by the power, there is no other hands that the treasure can fall in. He is also very aware that the student is going to retaliate for his manipulation and betrayal. This creates a full battle between Altair and the remaining brothers who haven't fell for the mind control of the Piece of Eden against assassins who are no more than puppets. The final confrontation happens in the gardens of Masyaf. Armed with the artifact, Al-Mualim fights not with skill alone, but with illusions and deception. Now, Altair's resilience proves to be too much. At this point, he is the most skilled assassin to ever exist, so the mentor meets his end at the hands of his student. The man who began this story by breaking all 3 tenets of the creed becomes the one responsible for saving it. Altair ends up acquiring the artifact, and it shows some locations for other pieces. Abruptly, Desmond is taken out of the Animus, wherein the present Abstergo has gotten what they wanted out of Desmond: information on the whereabouts of more artifacts. The scientist wants to kill Desmond in the spot since he has fulfilled his duty, but the assistant states that wouldn't be of benefit, leaving Desmond in his hostage situation and ending the game in a cliffhanger that leaves you with the feeling that this is the start of something grand. What a game. Ubisoft really has some high-performing games here and there. I think calling Assassin's Creed a masterpiece is a fair statement. Yes, the game is flawed, and yes, its mission structure can become repetitive, but to understand just how revolutionary it was, you have to look at it through the eyes you had in 2007. It's not fair to compare it to games that came out a decade later. Instead, look at what it accomplished for its time. Few games offered this level of freedom, verticality, immersion, and historical world building. Altair's story shines in a narrative that successfully blends history and fantasy into something unique. The game reviewed generally favorable at launch. It turned some heads, while leaving some others indifferent. But one thing is undeniable, it changed what stealth action games could be. Personally, I think it's a game that deserves to be above 80 points, an 84 if you push me. More importantly, it laid the foundation for some truly legendary sequels. Any of the Assassin's Creed 2 entries is pure gold. There are a few other gems throughout the series, but none that I consider exceptional. If anything, I think Assassin's Creed Rogue is massively underrated, and one of my personal favorites. Assassin's Creed 1 was also a massive commercial success. It sold over 8 million copies, kicking off a franchise that has now surpassed 200 million copies sold worldwide. Those are some major numbers. My name is Jorcelis, and with nothing else to say, good night.